What's up, and welcome to Groundbreaking, a Friendly Media original podcast celebrating and sharing the stories of young creatives across the music industry who are embarking on writing their very own journeys. Each episode, we feature a new up-and-comer, discuss their work, and make sure we leave you with a takeaway too. I'm Jake Brewer. Let's get started. On today's episode, I'm joined by Peter Fox, a producer, engineer, tour manager, and so much more. Every day, Peter is collaborating with all kinds of musicians to bring their vision to life, but today we're talking about his. We'll discuss his work, strategies for collaboration, some stories from the road, and what everyone should know from a producer and tour manager point of view. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Groundbreaking. I'm once again incredibly excited that you're here with us today. I'm really looking forward to this episode because I met our guest close to about a year ago now. And I think we had such a short amount of time together that when I left, I realized I had so many more questions. And so I got really lucky today to have an hour of his time to ask all those kind of questions that I was left with. But I also think this is going to be a really valuable conversation for anybody everywhere because the credits and the accomplishments and the work that our guest does varies a ton, and that's something that I really resonate with, of just wanting to do everything that you possibly can. I feel like that's a mentality I'm really excited to celebrate today. So Peter Fox, welcome to Groundbreaking. I'm super
Yeah,
excited to
thanks
have
for
you.
having me.
Of course, of course. I don't even want to ask what your perception of me when we first met was. It was some time ago now, but we had a very brief sort of time. I remember I was super sick though.
I
That's
do. I
all I
remember that.
remember.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking you were one of the most hardest working people I've ever seen, because every time I looked at you, you were doing something completely
Yeah.
different. You were parking a van, you were running sound, you were feeding people, you were doing absolutely everything. And I remember just being like, what? I was like, how did these guys find
Yeah.
this guy? And so I have a ton of
Sure.
questions for you today, kind of covering
Yeah.
everything that you do. But I wonder if you could kind of just start out for us, like, what is the best way that you kind of describe your work? Because I'm sure you get asked a ton of times, like, what is it you actually do? Because I think it's so niche and also so
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
I guess it depends on who I'm talking to and what I've most recently done in probably the last 48 hours. Like just a few minutes ago, I'm working on producing an event for South by Southwest. So I'm a production manager. So right now I've got my production manager brain in right now where I'm like putting all these pieces together, like bringing in artists to do a showcase at South by, and then tying in all the technical aspects. So if you had asked me, uh, you know, 48, 72 hours ago, I was planning a tour for an artist that's coming to the States that I'll be doing a couple of festival runs with, but it really depends on where I'm at in the day. I don't know. I got to keep myself busy. But yeah, I mean, I guess to answer your question, I mean it. I guess your question was like where like how do I tell people what I do, right? Is that what you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
it I usually start out with I mean all things like music production, touring, uh, producing records, mixing records, tour managing, running sound, audio. I mean, I've I've learned to like kind of like really in the beginning I was more of just an audio engineer, not just an audio engineer, but then as time progressed, I became versed in many other things. So yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
build upon
yeah,
everything that
yeah,
you've done before. I think that's so interesting too, because I always see a benefit in how many things people work on kind of within the same realm. Like, there has to be like some sort of translation between music production and touring
yeah,
production. Like they can't be total opposite ends. Like you're just adding on to what you know and learning more, but then I feel like as you do something outside of that, you're then learning new things that you bring back to what you originally started with. And so what was the first, you said engineering, how did you get into that? Because I even like really recently just started figuring out like, okay, you got a mixer, you got your
Hmm.
producer, you got an engineer. There's so many different ways to break things down, and there's almost no normal anymore. So how much do you feel like the evolution of the normal has contributed to the way that you've built your roles? And then how did you kind of find what roles were right for you?
I mean, not to go too far back, but I mean, my family's really musical, so I I found myself being the one that was like, miking things up when our family would get together and play music. So from there, I progressed into my high school, having a recording program, and then eventually I went to school and got a degree in audio engineering. I mean, from there, I mean, so your question's like from the transition from doing recording to touring. Is that what we were?
Yeah, yeah. How did you kind of build upon what you knew to feel empowered and confident enough to kind of adapt that into new
Well, I
spaces?
mean, to like, it really comes down to. It probably sounds really cheesy, but it really comes down to like understanding people and how people communicate, and especially in different dynamics of different environments. Like when you're in the studio, you're constantly um, you're trying to bring the best out in people. You're in an opportunity in a studio where somebody's come to you and given you their art to put it into a physical medium. So it's your opportunity, it's your job to make them not only feel comfortable but make it sound good. So there's so many factors that go in between that, but the 30,000 foot view of the whole thing is just understanding that person and what they're trying to accomplish. Um, and how you can best get them to where they want to be. And when it comes to touring
Yeah.
and in the studio, there's so many different relationships in there, and sometimes you're the kind of one that has to be the like deciding factor. If you have the drummer wants things to be done this way, and then the vocalist wants things to be done this way, so you have to be the one that steps in and be like, okay, so why are you feeling that way, and what is it that you want this, blah blah blah. You have to be you kind of have to be that. And
Yeah.
so like when it comes to like touring, it's like you really have to be the one that's kind of guiding the energy. You have to be the one that's guiding the focus and keeping everybody on point in a way, but at the same time giving everybody the freedom to be who they are. So I guess yeah, it's mostly for me. It's always been just like understanding people and doing my best to make sure that I'm communicating and uh, everybody's understanding that we all have a central focus, and then, like, no matter what you do, if you put that on it, as far as what I'm concerned, it's like you can do anything. It's like building skill
Yeah.
is easy, right? It's like learning how to like plan a tour is like, it's hard, but it's like once you do it, it's just the same thing over and over again, right? But it's like if you don't have the
Yeah.
connection and
Yeah.
the ability to communicate with people, I think it makes that job really hard, or you just won't get work.
Yeah, which are
Right.
both issues that you have to deal with. But I think one of the like consistent sort of pieces that I'm kind of getting that is valuable across all of your work is just being able to be somebody that can be in a vulnerable
Hmm.
space. Because I mean, in a music studio, I mean, basically that's all you're trying to do is just trying to get the most vulnerability and comfort out of everybody, whether you just met or this is your eighth, ninth, 10th session with
Right.
someone. But also you see a very vulnerable, real side of people when you're on the road with
Yeah.
them for a month and you don't get to separate and you're just driving the country.
Hmm.
um how how do you feel like those different sort of settings build relationships, because it sounds like that is the number one value to you? Do you have to adopt different strategies in those different settings, or do you feel like you just have to be the same person you've always been no matter what the objective
I
is?
mean, I'm always gonna be me, but it's mostly just learning. It's I mean, it's basic relationship. It's like, how does this person hear encouragement? Like, how does this artist that I'm tour managing, do they want me to give them every last detail of everything that we're going to be doing? Do they want me to guide them through every last thing, or do they just want me to be like, hey, I'll see you at the show. This is when the show starts. So be on the stage at this
Yeah.
time. I'm going to be over here doing
Yeah.
this. And I mean, in the studio, it's like, how does this person hear encouragement? It's like, oh, that was a great take. Let's try it again. Let's do another one. Maybe try this instead. Or that person like just is like, all right, let's keep going. They don't want any feedback. So it's just kind of paying attention to like, where like what their personality is like. If they if they'll tell you real quick. Like you just have to be
Yeah.
really like in tune with it of what how that person feels like they want direction, or you know how they want to be led, because that's kind of the position that you're in, is to kind of lead them, like I was saying, leading everybody to the goal, trying to get across the
Sure.
goal line.
Exactly. That's your job, and that's a massive job
Yeah,
that I was able to witness. But I wonder too, you don't have to give any specific
sure.
examples, but I'm thinking like, how do you find, because I think this is an issue that is applicable in a bunch of different roles, but with yours, I'm really interested to hear the answer of how do you find that middle ground between the best way to get the best output of an artist, like you're describing, like matching and meeting them where they
Hmm.
are, versus what you know is right and the right way to do things that will actually be the most
Yeah.
productive and actually maybe in their best interests, but they just don't know that. How do you find that middle ground of like, okay, this both works for us and is going to get us to that endpoint if you don't necessarily disagree with their comfort of the way they work?
I mean, I guess it I just push back. It's a pushback. It's like a gentle pushback of saying, tell me why you want to do it this way. Let's talk about why you want to do it this way. Do you really feel that you need to sing it that way, or do you really feel that we need to go this route? I mean, I'm trying to think how I apply that to touring, but it's like, scheduling. It'd be more like scheduling. It's like, oh,
Sure.
do you really need to go to this place, to go to this bar, or go to the restaurant? I don't know. It's like, is that really important to your day? If it is,
Yeah.
then if it's that important to you, I'm not going to push back on it. Like, I'm going to say, okay, I just want to make sure it's important to you. If it's not, then I don't know. If you're a grown adult and you're paying me for a service, so
Yeah.
there's really not much. I mean, even if it is in their best interest, it's like, there's only so far that I can, you know lead somebody. And it's like, do I know that I'm right? Probably. But at the end of the day, it's like, we all have to be, as long as we have the conversation, and when it not saying that I'm always right, but if it gets to a point where it didn't really work out, and I can just be like, oh, remember that conversation we had? Okay, I was just making sure you wanted to do that, because you said you wanted
Yeah.
to do that. But
Yeah, it's like it's almost like gently letting failure happen, not in a catastrophic way, but just all right, like learning from that too. Because you're right, you can't, you don't have full autonomy
yeah.
in any of those kind of spaces, but neither does the artist either.
Right. And I mean, it's like I said, it's like your job in that area to like, just, like, you have a goal. Everybody has a goal, and you're like, and this is the way that I see it working out. And if that is not in line with what you want, then it's okay. Well, cool. I've set the goal out, and it's not, I can't make you do it. It's like,
Yeah.
there's only so
Yeah.
far, like I said, there's only so far you can go until someone's just not going to do it. And I don't know. It's not really. It's like it's like the whole, the adage, like, I'm not going to die on that hill. It's like, is it worth it? It
Yeah.
depends. If depending on what we're talking about, it's like, if I'm like, yeah, you just can't play that guitar on that track. Like, that guitar just sounds too much. Like, let's try it. And sometimes in that situation in the studio, I'll be like, well, just do this for me. Let's just do a pass with you doing it like this. We can trash it later. I just want to have it for my back of my head, so I know that we've done it, and we can maybe A/B it later. But right now, the point is, let's just get through it. Maybe if you just do a pass with that guitar, playing it with that, that chord as opposed to the other chord. we'll at least have it there. We
Yeah.
won't be talking about this down the road, be like, oh, I guess so. I guess I wish I would have played it with that, diminished seventh instead of, just like a major, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like if you're looking for a battle and you want to fight every battle, you're going to be fighting a ton of
Yeah.
battles. But if you know how to like find the right ones that are worth that investment, then that's going to be a better
Right.
payoff. What do you feel like are the biggest like misconceptions then about your work, both tour managing and
Mm-hmm.
producing, that you almost just wish like every artist that I come face to face with, if they knew this, my job would be so much easier?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, what is the misconception of my job? Oh man, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of like, you know, it's kind of like what we were talking about. I mean, I guess with, you know, producers being very opinionated, but I mean, that's kind of what you're going to certain people because you trust their opinion and in the beginning. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. I don't really can't really think of any misconceptions off the top of my head. I don't know. Do you have any specific ones in mind that I feel like you might be like loaded
I'm
this?
I'm not fishing
Okay,
for
because
any.
I
I'm
I
not
can't
fishing
really
for
think of
any.
anything off the top of my head where people are misconstruing my role.
Yeah. I think I guess the one that like I hear like from kind of everything you're saying is just like is you have their best
Yeah.
interest in mind. And that will always be the case. Everything you say, everything
Hmm.
you do, like you're looking you understand them well enough to give that
Right.
advice. And if you didn't have an intention behind an advice or a decision, you wouldn't be
Right.
making it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and then I guess maybe that's more so what I hope from people that I work with in your role is is just like the comfort of knowing I know that my best interest is in
Right.
mind.
And it's like
Yeah.
it's you kind of come to somebody in the producer's situation to get that sound, or you really like the way that they work, so it's kind of like you're offering them your idea, and it's their option to take that idea or not to. And it's like, I don't know, if anybody pushes back on you too hard, then it's like maybe it's not a good relationship, maybe it's not a good
Yeah.
um maybe it's not a good match. I also
Exactly.
double as like a relationship coach, so
Yes. The best
yeah,
producers
you just need to
do.
move on.
Yeah.
Go find
Yep.
somebody that really loves you for who you are.
Well, I will say if somebody told me that before I learned the hard way, that would have been really
Right.
useful. So you're doing
Thank
great
you.
work. Um, I want to hear a little bit more too because we've hit on so many points about the value of
Hmm.
relationships and just
Yeah.
trust and meeting in the middle. How do you build people that see value in you? We can kind of start with producing and more of like in the studio sort of space because I know that's where you started. How did you first kind of get people to trust you to do the right work, and how do you make sure that people want to work with you again?
um I don't know. I mean, I just, hopefully I'm consistent. I think that's a help. I think most people would say that I definitely bring a good vibe in a way where I definitely am a good hang. I think that's kind of the role as like a tour manager. It's like not only do you have to plan everything, but you're kind of like the main, you're the vibe setter. It's like if you're stressed out and if you're wearing that stress of spinning all these plates, then you're gonna it's gonna bleed off to everybody, right? It's like if you're the one that's
Yeah.
leading the the fight, then you have to be like, everything's fine. Everything's totally fine. Like it's like,
Yeah.
so I think that's, I mean, I guess if your question is like how do I build people's trust in that, I think it's just maintaining that nobody's gonna die. like this is not a life or death situation,
Yes.
like this is not.
Yeah.
And if I ever feel that way, then I always have to step back and I'm like, okay, I'm getting way too stressed out right now. I need to like take a breath and like let's reassess this situation, because if I'm getting stressed out, then something needs to change, right? It's either my
Yeah.
attitude or something. So I think having that focus, but sometimes you have to have hard conversations outside of the band when it comes to like touring. But
Yeah. Yeah. I bet that discipline is very difficult,
it's
especially like because so much falls
yeah,
on you.
it's a very it's kind of maintaining like a really zen. You just have to be like,
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna beat this. We're gonna win. Like this is gonna be a good show. We're gonna have a great show. I like even
Yeah.
if the venue manager is a total dick, then we're gonna have a good show. Everybody's gonna be happy. I'm gonna
Yeah.
deal with like the shit from the venue manager, but everybody else is going to be happy and they're not going to see it. It's like, how do we
Yeah.
balance? You got to balance everything, give it where you need to, like put the heat on other people when you need to. But for the most part,
Yeah. How do you how do you still make sure that your experience is great then too? Because you're right. Like I would agree like a great tour manager is somebody who's absorbing a lot of that and making kind of sure everybody else can just solely focus on their role, whether it just be all they have to do is get out on that stage and give the best performance that they possibly can. So much is being added onto your
mm,
list. How do you make sure that you are still liking what you do?
I mean, it's fun. It's kind of like a roller coaster ride of so like I enjoy it from top to bottom, even if there's like along the way there's some bumps and whatnot, but it's like uh, for the most part, it's I'm always having a good time, you know. Like
Yeah.
I like to work with people who are have a good time. It's like I don't I always have a good time with I always have like I always have a meeting with people before I work with them. It's like let's make sure that we're gonna be a good match. Let's make sure that
Yeah.
we're gonna be hold on a second, sorry man, my computer's making weird noises and it's blasting my ears. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean it's like my experience through and through is always going to be good. I'm always going to have a good time because I love touring and I love like putting on a show, and you get to the end of the day and it's like that was a great show. Like either way, it's
Yeah.
like I got to hang with some cool people and we put on a show. It might not have been good of a show as like the last one, but hey, we had fun. Like we're all gonna be having a good time. Everybody's smiling. It's like we're still out here on the road. It's like it's not always gonna be a great show, you know?
Yeah. I think that's really, really important to say, to recognize. And I really like when you said nobody's gonna
Yeah.
die. Because I've had that feeling
Mhm.
too before of like, oh, like it's the show's still gonna happen. Like something is still gonna happen. Like it's not gonna all crash
Right.
and burn. You're right. Like it may not be your best. That's okay. Like you can't be doing your best at every
Yeah. We're
single
not
time.
making life or death decisions here. It's like that's anytime someone gets up to that level, I'm like, hey, we're not this
Yeah.
isn't we're not performing surgery here. Like we're
Yeah.
planning a
Which
show.
should give you some
Yeah,
peace
it's
of
like
mind.
everybody
Yeah.
just needs to just calm down, take a deep breath,
Yeah.
and let's have a good time.
Yeah.
It's like we all do this because we love it. It's like if people are getting
Yeah.
stressed, then oof, find a new career.
Yeah. Exactly. I want to talk a little bit more about the tour management side too, because I haven't had somebody on the show yet to kind of really adhere to or kind of share a lot of that
Sure.
world. And I think it's something that is so
Hmm.
underappreciated. By all means, I don't have the most expansive kind of look into creating a whole tour, but I know there's so many unique sort of things, and it's such a calculated
Hmm.
process that it's not just booking. There's so many things that go into it. So you don't have to, you don't have to give us your checklist or anything like that. But I want to kind of see like when like does it work as like is an artist or manager, is someone approaching you to be like, all right, how are we doing this thing? Like I really don't even have any idea of how that
Like, how
works.
does it, how do, like, from me receiving a tour to completion,
Yeah.
or how does it
Yeah,
get
how
started?
even are we getting to
Oh,
point
to
A?
point A. So,
Yeah, I don't even know.
so yeah, like I'll be approached by like this one artist, Matt Maltese, I believe is his name. He's a artist
Oh yeah.
from London, I believe. So his manager is also the manager of Prep, who that's how we
Okay.
know each other.
Amazing.
So
Great
he reached
guys.
out to me and said, I've got two festivals that I need a tour manager, sound engineer for. And I'm like, great, awesome. Okay, so he gets me in touch with the booking agent. He gets me in touch with the uh, festival. I guess it would be the festival in this situation. It'd be the festival promoter. So then I get all of their information, like the hospitality, the input, stage plot, um, uh, like day of schedule, and I just send all that information to them and say, here you go. Like, let me know where, what else you need from me. Festivals are really actually easy to schedule. I mean, on the level that I'm working at, just because it's just throw and go, as they say. You're just like, we're just running up there doing a 45-minute set, sometimes 50-minute set, and then we're getting out of there. It's like, it's not like a
Yeah.
big big tour where we have a full like 90-minute set or anything. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean, top to bottom, if it's like a full tour, uh, the management will get me the schedule. Management will get me all of a list of all of the venues, and then I just kind of get that same package of the input list, hospitality, um, and all of our information. Sometimes there's tax information I have to send out, and I just send it to each one of those venues, and then just pretty much say the same email, copy and paste as they respond, and then
Yeah.
book it. I mean, book. Then I book the if it's a tour like with Prep. Um, I booked the van that we used. I booked that, and then there's each show you have to go through and solidify the back line, because like we were traveling with very few instruments, so we had to have drum kits, keyboards, and stuff like that. So each show needs to have that locked in.
Yeah.
Um, that's the major thing. I mean, if there's anything that would totally throw a show off is if the backline didn't make it there, because then it's like there's no instruments, we can't play the show, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like if we don't have the right kind type of
Exactly.
gin or the right type of tequila in the green room, it's like the show will go on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna be
If we don't have if we
fine.
don't have
Yeah.
that drum kit
But
though, it's going to be a little awkward.
it's gonna be a
It's
very
gonna be
different
it's gonna
show.
be a little
Yeah.
awkward.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And you have to kind of go into all these different roles too. Like I remember you being like I took a train to the next city and you'd be like, I drove that like you drove that van. Like you're like, I'm also the driver. I'm also like doing
Yeah.
this. Is that a piece that you like love about it though? Of just like you get to do so many different things. Like I would be amazed if you said you had a day that looked identical to the last one.
I mean, most days on that tour they looked pretty similar, but there was a lot of drive days in there. But yeah, I mean, it's it's like I operate well in a high energy, high stress. Like I'm like locked in when I have like 50 things to do. If you give me one role, I'm like, I've got way too much time here. Like this is like my mind, I've got ADD, so like my mind will start wandering. But if I have like 50 things to focus
Yeah.
on, I've got there's always something I can be doing, right? And if I'm sitting down on
Nice.
tour, then that's there's there's a checklist in my mind. I'm like, oh wait, oh yeah, no, I gotta go. I've got to go print the set list.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's so funny. Um, do you feel like things usually get easier as a tour progresses? Like, do you kind of fall into like a little bit more of a routine as, you're into show 5, show 6, whatever it may be? Does that get easier, or is it just new city? It's a whole different ball game.
I mean, it's once the ball gets rolling on a tour, it's pretty easy. I mean, the way that I operate, and I think a lot of tour managers do operate when they're doing, I mean, I know some tour managers that don't do it this way, and I don't know how they do it, but I always do all my advancing. I set up all the hotels before I even hit the road. Before I hit the road, I have every
Yeah.
hotel booked. I have every um, uh, I have all the shows advanced. I have everything. Every venue knows what. Also, all I have to do is get the band there, walk in, set the band up, do the sound check, and roll, and then look at Master Tour, which is our tour management software that we use. Are you familiar with that? So it's like I
Yeah.
use that.
No.
Yeah, it's an app that everybody has. So like I put everything in Master Tour, and so it's just a day by day calendar that looks like this is where our hotel is, this is where the venue is, this is what the day of show or the run of show that we're going to be doing throughout the day. So I have everything in there. So if anybody comes up and asks me, the kind of the running joke is with tour managers is like it's in Master Tour. They're like, what? Well, hey, what
Oh.
time is dinner? It's like it's in Master Tour. Like you just have to open up your phone and look at it. It's just right there.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I like to have everything really locked in. So by the time we're hitting, wheels on the ground, it's just kind of facilitating the plan that had been done in the front end. Um, so it, I would say by the time we're there, it's pretty easy. It's the front end making sure all those details are kind of like a you know choreographed dance in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It is
Yeah,
exactly like that. It's such a fine-tuned schedule that you can find on
yeah.
Master Tour.
Gets so it's all on Master Tour. It's pretty much on Master Tour.
um, I have some really actually just stupid questions that I want to ask.
Okay.
Is there like, because of you've had these sort of touring experiences, is there like a city that you're like, great?
Like, oh no.
Yeah, or like I don't know, are you ever just like, if I have to go to like some city like one more time, and I guess if you're like, no, I'm not gonna call any city out like that, you could be like, why am I like,
Oh,
is there any place that you're like, why haven't I been able to go here yet? Or even like, hey, maybe even like a festival or something like that you're like, actually maybe you don't want to call it a festival, I wouldn't blame you for doing
yeah.
that,
I
but
mean, I like most cities. I can't really think of a city. There's like just random cities that, I mean, Cincinnati is a lot of fun. I've just done a lot of like cool shows and just like very random. On the last like 2 tours ago with Mondo Cosmo, I we went and played a show in oh man, what is it? Great Falls, Montana.
oh
The most random city ever, but the most beautiful city. It's just, I mean, the drive, most drives that I do are, east west. You're hitting Denver, you're going Salt Lake City, then you go Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, or Sacramento.
yeah,
So you're just
yeah,
doing this thing right here. So you rarely go up. You'll go into like Omaha. Um, Omaha's another sleeper city. Like Omaha's really cool. Uh, but like
okay,
never rarely go up into Montana on a tour because it's just really far out of the way. And we got to go and do a
yeah,
show in Great Falls, Montana, and it was a small show. There wasn't that many people there, but the crowd that was there was awesome. The venue took care of us. I mean, it was. I mean, there was this place called oh man, what is it called? It was like a mermaid hotel. Like there was literally a tiki bar downstairs of this hotel, a giant glass wall, and there was a woman in a mermaid outfit swimming in behind. It was just a ridiculous experience, and I couldn't recommend Great Falls, Montana anymore. Like it's a vibe.
only in Great
Yeah.
Falls,
I mean,
only in
that's the
Great
thing is like
Falls.
I mean, not to kind of flip your question, but I just like there's really not, I don't know, Santa Ana, like California, like I don't know. It's like I'm not really stoked on like that place. I mean, it's just kind of, it's not.
Yeah.
I could skip that place and that
Okay.
venue many times.
Okay.
But other than that, like I really like all the cities I go to. I mean, I was just actually looking in my phone at my Google Maps, and I've got pins dropped all over the place. It's like, oh, this is the place to
Sick.
get pizza in Salt Lake City, or this is a place to get pizza. Like I'm in Philly right now, so I was like, oh, here's all the Philly cheesesteak spots that I like. This is where you go and get a
Yeah.
cool cocktail. So you get to gather all those things. It's fun.
That's so
Yeah, it's a lot
fun.
of fun.
Do you feel like you have enough time to really enjoy a city? Like even if it was just a quick stop on the road, do you always just try to find something to kind of remember it by that's outside of a venue? Like do you like consciously try to, get to know a city better, or is there even just no time for that?
I mean, it at this point in my career of touring, like I've been to most major cities enough to know it's like, oh, this is where I got to go. This is where I want to go. I
Yeah.
want to go. And it depends on what venue. Like I've been to most of the venues in New York. I've been to most of the venues in San Francisco. So I'm like, okay, well, we've got to go to this ramen spot in San Francisco because it's my favorite.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just a little Uber drive over this way. So I definitely have my spots, so I know the experience I'm gonna get in there. But I mean, most of the time, it's like if you're playing in San Francisco, you're probably gonna be driving to LA the next day, so you really don't have much time. So
Sure.
you gotta bust like a 7 hour drive to Los Angeles the next day. So it's like you finish the show, get wrapped up, and get to bed because you're gonna be waking up in like probably 4 hours, driving 7 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't. I mean, it depends. Like
Exactly.
sometimes you'll have 2 nights in a city, and you can kind of really lean in. Like the last time I was in Brooklyn with Prep. We were there for like 3 or 4 days. They were doing a recording session,
Oh,
and
nice.
we played a couple of shows. So we had some time, so I was able to kind of like just walk the city, have fun, lean in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Enjoy.
yeah.
That's nice. What's the longest time you've gone without sleeping?
Oh, on a tour.
Yeah.
I
Or or not. Or
was like,
not.
is this just like
No, that's where I
I
was
mean,
coming
on
from.
a
Yeah.
tour, I try to get as much sleep as I can, just especially in a situation where I'm going to be driving. Like, it's just not safe. It's just not safe to kind of to
Yeah.
pull an all nighter. Like, I've rarely. I mean, if we're talking strictly touring, like I try to get as much sleep as I can, even if it is only like 3 hours. I would probably say a better question is what's the least amount of sleep you've gotten. So I probably slept for like two
There we go.
hours. Like there'd be a time where we'd play a show, go and sleep for 3 hours, and then wake up and then drive for 8 hours because we had to get to this. It's just like
Yeah.
a weird mapping of a tour or something where it's like we at least get 3 hours of sleep. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've done 1 hour, but that I wasn't driving, so we had two drivers, and they would sleep. I would drive after the venue. They would go to sleep in the back of the van. We'd get to the hotel, keep sleeping, wake up. They would drive the morning. I would sleep another like 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, and then we would switch off. So
Got
that
it.
kind
Got
of
it.
thing.
Okay. That makes more
Yeah.
sense. Um I wonder, is there like a moment at any point in your career thus far, either producing or being on the road, or any sort of moment where like maybe you had like an aha of like this is what I'm meant to be doing. Like there's no doubt about it. I'm doing the right thing for me.
Oh yeah. So one of the bands I work with, they're actually the first band I ever uh, went on tour with. Is a band called In the Valley Below, and yeah, and they're
Yeah, yeah,
close
I know
friends of
them.
mine. So they actually, how I met them, short story, how I met them is they lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I used to own a recording studio, and so they came in to record some drums or something for their record, and then they were like, "We love you. Would you want to come on tour with us?" And I was like, "Oh, for sure, let's go."
Uh,
So, anyways, their last record they released, they did kind of like I don't even know how to properly explain it. It was a film. It was like a film that kind of like Lemonade, where it's like every song corresponded to a different scene of.
yeah, yeah, they did like a
Yeah,
visual album.
exactly. It's exactly what
Sick.
it was. So they did that, and we did this tour with them, where we went around to all of the Alamo Draft House, and so
Oh,
they
sick.
played they
Yeah,
played they played the film on the screen, and then everybody had silent disco headphones. So we just handed out these like wireless Bluetooth headphones to everybody, and then I mixed them playing through people's Bluetooth headphone, or the wireless headphones, while they're watching the film. The band's performing it live, and it was just the coolest tour I've ever done. It was a small tour. It was just the three of us on the road, but it was just so cool. And then we ended it in LA. The record label had rented out this mansion, and they did like a live walkthrough of that film. So you walk into this one room and you're in this one scene, and everybody still has the headphones on, and so you're walking in, and this is the scene where the song is playing in the background and you're hearing it, and then you come back up, and they kind of toured you through the whole mansion, and then you came into the ballroom, and then the band was there playing at the end of it. It was just, it gives me chills just seeing it, because it was just the coolest like event, like live like experience, like
yeah,
visual record that I mean I've ever seen. Um,
yeah. And
yeah, that was
when you played such an integral part in that,
it was I
yeah,
mean that was that yeah, because you had people walking through it, so you had the radios, and you're like, okay, here's the people are coming back through to the ballroom, get ready, because it was just like everything was like on a click track, and it was just like perfectly timed to like once everybody walks in, the lights come on and the band's on the stage and they're playing the song as people are walking in. It was the moment where I was like, oh, this is
insane.
this is this is why I do this. I was like,
Yeah,
I have worked to be where I'm at right now, and this is just like beyond the coolest thing I will ever do. And it was.
yeah. Do you think that was because you were just giving such a unique experience, or is that because you were bringing somebody's music to life in a whole new way that only like you really could help them deliver? Like, what about that do you think was made it so
I mean, it was
fulfilling?
just being a part of that event I mean, it was just the most creative. So Angie and Jeff, I mean, they're just such brilliant people. It's so creative. And the fact that they were able to pull it off. I mean, Bright Antenna was the record label. They had a lot to do with it. But I mean, Angie and Jeff, like they were the ones that really designed the whole experience, and
Yeah,
like put the pieces in play. So yeah, I was mostly just being a part of something just great. It was just like just the most
yeah,
creative thing that I could ever imagine. It was like this is awesome. You know.
insane, insane.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Um, I want to ask you the last sort of question that we always like to ask
Oh
on the
yeah.
show. Um, because I always, and if you've heard an episode before, anybody listening, you know kind of what I'm about to ask. And I feel like a lot of the times I want to listen to somebody who I want to learn something from, whether I just feel like they do their job really well or I want to do something similar to them. And I struggle a lot to find a tangible takeaway
Hmm.
in everything that they say. And so people have been listening for almost an hour, hearing kind of about your story, what you've learned, and kind of those experiences that really solidified why you do what you do. You can kind of take this on whatever level you want. It just be anybody who's passionate or creative about anything, or maybe somebody who wants to do exactly the path that you're doing. They've given an hour of their time here. If they have another hour right now, like what's something you could almost like tell them to do to make it feel like they took a step forward
I
today?
mean, if they've been sitting here for an hour, they need to go outside immediately. They need to go for a walk. They need to go out and they take a
It's a good
deep
start.
breath, go out into the city, look at some lights. That's actually what I'm going to do after this. I'm going to go for a little walk.
Never a
Yeah,
bad idea.
I'm going to
Never
go
a
for a
bad
walk. I've
idea.
been sitting in my hotel room for a minute now. So, uh, yeah, I mean, it's it's hard to. I mean, right now, I mean, the opportunity to like learn to be a a tour manager. I mean, there's lots of opportunities. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people um, weren't able to continue in the career after COVID. So, I mean, fine. I mean, there's tons of resources out there. So there's I can't think of any off the top of my head specifically, but I know that there is one called the Tour Collective. And, you know, if you really want to reach out and find like some good resources on like how to become one, I know Tour Collective is a company that they do kind of like they send out newsletters. They have courses that you can take that kind of walk you through like steps to get started in that. Um, yeah, I mean, in far as like recording music is just you just have to keep recording, always be recording, always just. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no there's no quick path to it other than just continual repetition, repetition, repetition. I mean, it's like 10,000 hours to become a professional or whatever the saying is, but you just have to just record your friends, like record everybody. I mean, you're not going to get paid for a minute, so you might as well just record as many things as you can. And there might be one of those things that you record in there that, like, oh, this is what got me to my next level. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly right. That's great. I think that's such a good
hmm
mentality to adopt
yeah,
too. Yeah, the more you create, the more creative
yeah,
you'll be. Anyway, I don't know if that summed that up well, but Peter, I
for
appreciate
sure,
your
man.
time so much today and your kind of transparency and for sharing just everything kind of about your work. I found it all incredibly fascinating, and I appreciate all the work that you do, and I look forward to seeing everything you do from here on
Right
out.
on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me today on Groundbreaking. If you're like me and want to keep up with Peter's journey, just check the social links in the description to follow him and all the incredible work that he has ahead. Stay tuned for more next time on the show, and as always, be sure to rate and comment on the show from wherever you're listening. You can also connect with me at Jake Brewer Music across all social channels and see more of what Friendly's up to at Friendly Media or by visiting friendlymedia.com. That's FRNDLY Media. We'll see you next time for more Groundbreaking.